to go ahead and get started. My watch says it's 2. So welcome everyone and thank you for joining us for Virtual 30, our live event series happening every Tuesday at 2. Today is May 19th and our topic is RPA for business automation. And we've got Manoj Iragavrapu here today. He's the
Everyone.
managing director of Vsoft Labs. So before we begin, we will share our working from home picture of the week. This week we have this picture we received from Talia in Louisville of her cat, Sassy, helping her out there on her laptop. And for those who are new, we like to share a picture like this every single week because I know a lot of us are still in the same boat of being stuck at home, hopefully for not too much longer. But if you would like to be featured, we'd love to see your pictures. Just send them to virtual30series@gmail.com. Real quick, my name is Brianna Colder, as I mentioned, and I'm the Corporate Project and Event Coordinator for Vsoft, as well as the moderator for this series. So I am normally located in the Louisville headquarter office outside of quarantine. Can't wait to get back through the doors, but for now, working from home. So as I mentioned, we have Manoj with us today, so I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. This is Manoj Iragavrapu. I'm the Managing Director on the Vsoft Labs side.
Perfect. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Today, Manoj is going to cover, like I mentioned, robotic process automation. He will be touching on kind of defining what RPA is, how RPA can automate business, why businesses should use RPA, and then he'll end with a case study example of an RPA implementation. As always, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So if you have any questions along the way, you can just drop them in the chat box below and we will be sure to get to them. For anyone that's new, the reason we call this Virtual 30 is the hope is to get everything done in 30 minutes or less. We can get you on with your day, and we have never gone overtime before, so hopefully we can stick with the trend. With that said, we can go ahead and begin. So we have a little cartoon here for you all to look at, but our first question for you, Manoj, is what is RPA? If you can kind of expand on that.
Okay. Should I give a minute for them to read the joke, or should I read it?
You can go ahead. They can look at it.
Right. So RPA, as most of you would know, is robotic process automation. It is a process in which we are deploying digital bots. These are not the real bots out there that are that you see picking up stuff and doing lifting and shifting and all of those stuff. This is digital bots, computer programs that do repetitive that do the same repetitive tasks that one of your resource or an employee might be doing. So what it means is you take a particular activity, you define specific steps on a use case where things are not changing too much, and you let an automated program do that. There could be intelligence in there, or it could be straight rule-based. So I'll give you a specific example so it's easy to comprehend what it means. Let's say you're taking a particular download from an email, putting into a folder, and uploading that into another system, right? This is a task that someone has to do day in, day out, every day, repeatedly, right? The email system doesn't change, and the location where you need to download the file doesn't change, and where you need to upload the button, the location, the website doesn't change. So you can write a bot in robotic process automation platform or your own ground-up solution, and it can take care of the task without having a human intervention there. RPA comes in many flavors. There is an unattended and unattended, attended and unattended, and there is a cognitive angle you can add. So there is intelligent process automation, intelligent RPA as well, where AI and ML come into picture.
Perfect. Up next, we have a quote that I'm going to read. It says, RPA software spending is expected to total $2.4 billion in 2022, with year-over-year growth exceeding 57%. This is from Gartner. So Manoj, can you kind of expand on that a little bit, explain the importance of it?
Right. So that makes sense because as we see more and more entities, businesses, people are trying to do more with less. More so now, when you see this whole COVID situation and you see this both lack of resources to perform a particular task and also uh, we not being able to bring the resources to do the task, even if we have the resources, right? It's no more, yeah, good to have, we'll get some automation in place. It became more of a survival thing now. So we can anticipate that this percentage growth will be significantly higher in 2020 because you need to look at your whole process chain and find what you need to automate in that. And RPA will play a definitely significant role in that area.
Perfect. All right, our next question for you, Manoj. How does RPA help automate your business, or how can it?
Right. So when you're looking at RPA, right, and when you're looking at automation in general, you're looking at areas where you can take out the manual processes and bring in automation in there. To be specific, when you pick up a use case for RPA, you want to look at a couple of aspects. You want to look, is that process repetitive? Is that process touching the systems that doesn't change too frequently? Do I need that process in place rather quickly, the automation of that process rather quickly? And do I want to do it without having much of an impact in the overall process chain? As we discussed in one of our previous virtual sessions, the automation can be done in many ways. You can build apps, you can integrate, and you can do AI and all of it. Every one of them will have some sort of an impact. Like you can automate by integrating two different systems, but again, you have to define how the systems flow, how the systems change, and all of that. Whereas RPA, all you're doing is you're just taking a human and and augmenting the mind-numbing work that they're doing probably at that point with the manual task and putting in RPA bots in place. So you consider these use cases and you identify the either the complete process or parts of the process and say, I'm going to replace these components with robotic process automation. And then you choose a particular platform. There are many platforms like UiPath, Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, Automation Edge, Microsoft Power Automate. You pick one of them that fits best. Some sell by bots, some sell by servers, some sell by entities. You take into consideration which one fits best, and then try a sample bot. Do it where it's doing that particular aspect. Make sure all the validations are put in place, and then you put in production and test it out regularly, right? If nothing is changing, it's a very low maintenance process, and you can see the ROI within a week of your implementation.
Perfect. All right. We'll go on to the next. Why should businesses use RPA? So I know there's a lot happening on here. So if you can go ahead and kind of talk us through that.
Right. So as we discussed in the earlier point, how can you automate, right? The first piece is defining your processes and identifying which areas you can automate. So by putting in a manual, by replacing a manual process and putting in a bot in its place, you're bringing a significant amount of transparency and accountability there. So you're defining a process and you're saying that this segment of the process I'm automating. So I want to see what goes in, what comes out. And it's very, very repetitive, automatic. So you're getting full visibility into what's happening and full accountability of what's coming out of it, right? And using this, you can plan your IT, you can strategically plan your IT initiatives. You can define what parts of my infrastructure or tools or platforms do I need to change? What platform, what forms can I keep? Which can be automated now, which can be systematically automated using other forms of automation. So it brings in a lot of strategic angle to your IT services and operations, right? And one of the biggest component in these days is the auditing of what is the risk and how is it impacting security. So today, let's say if you're using RPA for your own offboarding, let's say, one of your one of the key components that you need to offload, let it be a particular resource or a particular software or a tool, are every single aspect of it correctly checked off. So there is a scope for human error if you're doing a manual process. Whereas for a bot, you have checks and balances put in place. There is less risk and higher security. So from a significant amount of other benefits that are there, these three are the main ones where you get more transparency, you can plan well, and you can reduce your risk.
Perfect. All right, now Manoj just he's going to work us through a case study with regarding a multinational industrial distribution company and their RPA implementation.
Right. So this is one of the recent use cases where this particular company has to process a lot of invoices, right? And as you see me quoting, you're hearing more and more finances, because that's where RPA is more commonly used in your finance and accounting division. So these people, they have thousands of invoices that they have to process for their customers, validate them, process them, and then release the clearance of the invoices. Currently, all they're doing is getting all of them by emails, then downloading them into a particular folder, tracking them all in their Excel sheets, and then uploading them into a system where they can get it to processing, right? So many things are happening. There are emails that are getting missed, which is quite possible. Sometimes the amount of downloading they put, since these are thousands of them, they're putting for download. Some of them download, some of them doesn't download. And if there is a stoppage in one of the file from downloading, there is no way for you to track it because it's a manual step. And you're tracking in Excel, where you first have to enter all the details very cleanly in Excel. And then you have to track what is happening with that invoice in that Excel, where someone can miss putting in the right tracker at the end of the day. And then someone needs to take, based on what is tracked, what is the status in the Excel sheet, and then upload into your end system, which again, people might forget uploading, or again, there is an uploading issue there. So we have written bots that are scheduled to perform and sliced and diced them into several processes, where there are clear reporting metrics. In a dashboard, you can see how many emails came in, how many were downloaded. If there is a mismatch, you got a problem there. How many of them are supposed to be downloaded, including the size of the files and the count, and how many got into the right folders. And from there, we are not using Excel anymore. We are using API-based system where we are directly sending this information to the third-party system, and bot is passing on the information to the API, right? And then from there, the end system, we're seeing how much is getting processed. We log into the system and we check. The bot does the logging into the system and checking, and then seeing if everything is there or not. This is just one component. Previously, they wanted to directly download instead of emails from these vendors' websites as well, which is a lot more involved process, because you have to log into these vendor portals and you have to find where they are. The portals keep changing. You have to store the login password somewhere and download. That would have been more efficient than the email process, but they were not doing, because it's a lot more resource intensive process, right? So that has been adopted as phase 2 as well, where the bots directly receive login passwords of the APIs, reach out to the websites, download directly from there, and send the processed ones directly to the system. So overall, whatever was taking at least 3 days to process at 20% has been significantly reduced. We are processing, increased their capacity of how many invoices can be processed per day, as in not just what they're getting, but something that they can sell more to the other customers and get more invoices downloaded, which they were not doing because of the capacity limitations. And we were able to do it within the same day processing. So this improved the overall process, reduced the bugs and issues they're having with the invoice downloads and processings, and significant improvement in the customer satisfaction.
Perfect. That's a great example. Okay, we do have one more quote before we get to our Q&A, so I will read it. It's from Gartner as well. By the end of 2022, 85% of large and very large organizations will have deployed some form of RPA. Manoj, if you can kind of talk through this one as well and kind of explain the importance of RPA.
Right. So like we discussed earlier, and it's very true, large and very large organizations will see a significantly more ROI from these ones, because you will be seeing more of these repetitive tasks that are happening with the sheer amount of large processes they might have and the amount of systems that they interact with. And surprisingly, how many of them use legacy systems. Some of the migrations in any large entity is a 5-year project, right? You can't wait 5 years to see an ROI just to move data from one location to another location and see the information flowing through smoothly and find the benefits, right? So we see that they're adopting RPA, if not as a stopgap, but also as a final solution, and automating a lot of these aspects in there.
Perfect.
Right.
Whoop. All right, now we will jump into our Q&A. I did see a couple questions come through. First one, if you could answer, Manoj, how long does it take to turn RPA on for my company, and what is the cost?
It really depends. I know that's a cliched answer, but quite frankly, what we're doing with companies is we're going after the lowest hanging fruit that has the highest or very easy way of measuring an ROI. So you can get a process properly written in probably a week, and depending on how many steps are there, on an average, I would say a simple bot would take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. And you should be able to see an ROI rather quickly, right? And a bot, again, the cost can vary between, depending on which software you choose and how you implement, anywhere from $5,000 onwards per year per bot, kind of a thing. Right?
Perfect.
And what criteria should I consider when implementing RPA? The most important criteria you should consider is the cost of the bot. It's not just the implementation, it's not just the license. You should consider the support cost of the bot. That gives you a well-rounded 360-degree view of am I better off using this or not, right? Your implementation cost might, if you take an example, you're trying to automate a process for a website where the website keeps changing, right? Your implementation might be very cheap. Your license can be very cheap, but then you have to keep supporting the bot because you have to keep changing the bot to align with changes in the website, right? Which is not economical. So we should consider use cases, specific use cases that fit very well to what works for an RPA implementation, right? So I think I covered some of those criteria, which is, is it repetitive? Does it change frequently? And do I have to get my ROI rather quickly? Do I have to make big investments in getting what I need to get? And will it take more time? If so, then is RPA a stopgap solution or a permanent solution if nothing is changing? So those are the main criteria that you should consider. What platform did you use for invoice processing? We used Blue Prism for the invoicing processing for one client. We are using UiPath for another client. We are now evaluating Automation Edge and Microsoft Power Automate for a very large transportation company as we speak. Right? Again, it depends on what licensing, what factors you want, and how you want the bot to work. Right? One size doesn't fit everything. It keeps changing depending on your requirement. What area of my company would bring the biggest ROI with RPA? It really, again, is going back to the criteria, but if I have to give a very high-level simplistic thing, most people are seeing in their finance and accounting and operations areas. That's where most people are seeing. But every single business unit that has, to repeat myself, the repetitive processes and something doesn't change in the process, the tools doesn't change, are all ripe for a good RPA implementation and get the ROI out of it.
Perfect. Oh, we just got one more in. Why wouldn't I implement RPA internally?
There's several reasons. Everything boils down to the ROI. That's what you need to look at the end of the day. Let's say you're a small company, you don't have much of a process. Daily, you're clicking on one download of an email, putting into somewhere kind of a thing, right? It's a overkill to write a bot for it. Again, my company is too dynamic. I have too many moving parts in there. I can't define a process. I don't have a process definition, and people won't align that because my organization by nature itself is very dynamic. Then again, RPA will not cater to your needs. So the other part is we are in a transition phase where we're already planning for adopting to new technologies, one single platform. I don't have to move between multiple platforms. Everything happens as a workflow and business process is automated in one single platform. Then again, RPA is redundant there, right? So it again goes back to those 5 criteria, and you pick, do I fall in that criteria or I won't fall in that criteria? Based on that, you can make a decision. And then after that, it's a matter of picking the right platform.
Oh, I saw one more question. Okay, how much is an initial consult before we even think about considering?
You're asking general question, or you're asking about Vsoft's initial console? I'm assuming, let me take on a limb and I'll say that it's an initial console for Vsoft, because that's what I can explain. No, we do a free consultation session to analyze and understand your use cases, to suggest to you what is the best use case.
Perfect. All right, great questions, everybody. We had 6 good questions there. I think that's all we have. If you come up with more, you can always reach out to us. Here's Manoj's contact information right here, and I'll provide mine at the end. So thank you, Manoj, for joining us today. I know you have a busy schedule all the time, so we appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, his information is here, and I will put it in the chat at the end as well. And be sure you join us next week on the 26th. Our topic is computer vision for social distancing and contact tracing. If you were able to join us last week, you might have noticed we had this subject set for today, but we had a little schedule change, so we will be covering this topic next week. Other than that, thank you all for joining us today. If you're interested in being a panelist, we're always looking for outside panelists, so we would love to have you speak on here. Just reach out to virtual30series@gmail.com, and I will put all the information in the chat for you, and I'll leave the screen up. For those who join us today and haven't been able to register officially, the follow-up email, I'll provide a link to the registration page, so you can receive all the follow-up emails from there. And that is all we have for you today. So Manoj, thank you for joining us, and thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.